An Air France Airbus A330 is preparing to depart from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, to Paris, France. The A330 is a fly-by-wire aircraft considered to be pilot-proof and one of the safest commercial planes in operation today. There are 228 souls on board and 3 pilots. The captain, Marc Dubois, age 58, is a highly experienced pilot with 11,000 flight hours. First Officer David Robert has accumulated 6,500 flight hours and is aged 36. The youngest and least experienced pilot, Pierre Cedric Bonnet, is aged just 32 and holds 2,900 flight hours. At 10 p.m. GMT, Air France 447 departs from Rio de Janeiro. It was a flawless takeoff. Air France 447 flies along Brazil's east coast bound for Paris. Robert takes a scheduled rest break in the small cabin behind the flight deck. Bonnier is in the right-hand seat. Captain Dubois is seated on the left. Over the Atlantic in the middle of the night, there isn't much to do. There's a relaxed mood in the cockpit. The passengers settle in to sleep after their evening meal. As the aircraft travels across the equator, it enters what's known as the Intertropical Convergence Zone. Though not on the animation, Air France 447 is currently flying through a storm. Captain Dubois, however, is unfazed. He chooses to keep flying his current heading. Then, the aircraft is lit up by a blue glow. This is St. Elmo's fire. St. Elmo's fire is heavily charged ice pellets hitting the windscreen. At this critical stage of flight, Captain Dubois makes a decision to take his rest break. This can and has been heavily scrutinised and criticised by those investigating the crash of Air France 447. Tragically, unbeknownst to the passengers and flight crew, they now have just 15 minutes to live. The aircraft is configured correctly for the storm. Anti-ice is switched on. What the pilots are unaware of is that ice is beginning to build up around the aircraft's pitot tubes. Pitot tubes are metal probes external to the aircraft. These detect the speed of the air hitting the aircraft. This allows pilots to monitor forward speed. Bonnier says quickly, "I have control." Suffering from being startled and panicking, Bonnier does the unthinkable. He quickly yanks back on the side stick, causing the plane to dramatically pitch nose up. At this altitude, this manoeuvre is extremely dangerous. This part of the atmosphere is known to pilots as Coffin Corner. Due to low air density, the aircraft's wings require much more lift to support the aircraft at this altitude. The aircraft loses forward speed and lift, subsequently begins to sink. As the confused pilots desperately try to understand what's happening as the aircraft is now entering a stall, they try to summon their captain, Marc Dubois, back onto the flight deck, but he does not respond. He doesn't respond for over a minute. The pilots are chattering amongst themselves. They think that they're flying too fast as they don't trust their instruments. Bonnier in a panic, says, "Hell, I'm not controlling the aircraft." He then repeats this for emphasis. David Robert then replies, "Where is he?" swearing in response, speaking about the captain. Due to the aircraft mushing down, it would have been juddering and buffeting. This would have created extreme aerodynamic noise, confusing the pilots. They are convinced that the aircraft is still flying too fast and reduced power. Just under a minute from when he was first called, Captain Dubois returns to the cockpit. It should have taken seconds.
Qu'est-ce qui se passe là? Qu'est-ce que vous foutez? Qu'est-ce qui se passe? Je sais pas ce qui se passe.
Somehow, panicked and confused, Bonnier still attempted to extend the air brakes.
Non, surtout sors pas les freins. Non? Ok. Les sors pas. Mentir, qu'est-ce que t'en penses? Qu'est-ce que t'en penses? Qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire? Je sais pas. Descends. Merde, c'est pas possible. Ça y est, on va arriver au centre.
With less than a minute before they crash into the sea, this is likely the point the pilots knew that there was no time left to figure things out. It was over. Out of what was presumably desperation, First Officer Robert pleads with the aircraft to climb. The man flying the aircraft, Bonnier, then states, "But I've had the stick back the whole time."
Remonte. Mais je garde à fond là depuis tout à l'heure. Non, remonte pas. Non, descends.
Both pilots shout at Bonnier to descend before Robert jumps in and shouts quickly, "Give me the controls, give me the controls." Robert tries desperately to pitch the aircraft nose down in order to regain speed. Due to the pilots not being able to see each other's side stick inputs, Captain Dubois believes that Robert is still pitching up due to the instruments still showing the plane's nose attitude in the same position. Captain Dubois can be heard saying on the cockpit voice recorder, "Pay attention, you're pitching up." Robert responds, surprised, "I'm pitching up?" This shows that Robert is in such a state of panic he doesn't even know if he's pushing or pulling on the control stick. Unbeknownst to the two other pilots, Bonnier, in a panic still, resumes pulling back on his stick. Two contradictory inputs cancel each other out, triggering a dual input warning. Chaos in the cockpit has caused a breakdown to an unimaginable extent. As they pass 2,000 feet, the aircraft's ground proximity warning system calls out an alarm. Essentially giving up, Captain Dubois commands the pilots to pull up. They would be damned if they did and damned if they didn't at this point. It was just too late. Robert says, "We're gonna crash, this can't be happening." Bonnier says, "But what's happening?" He still doesn't understand. Even in the final seconds of the flight, he still doesn't understand what is happening to their aircraft. Dubois commands 10 degrees pitch attitude. The pilots then give up. Silence is heard on the cockpit voice recorder for the last few seconds. They know the situation is hopeless. "14 minutes, 28 seconds past 2 a.m, Air France 447 crashed into the ocean. All 228 people on board lost their lives. This video is made in memory of them. I've tried to make it as accurate and professional as I possibly can using the limited technology at my hands. Thank you for watching. Goodbye."